Welcome back to episode 16 of Cashed In, and today we're joined by none other than Eric Mckenna, a real estate agent, an entrepreneur, a voice of radio, and the list is endless. But Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
What can I say after that? It's all false. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Really good to be here.
I've been on your show.
You have.
Yeah.
I think you were on the show during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep.
You're one of the early shows when we started to do the shows again. You were one of my first guests on the pandemic. I think back in the studio because we were doing them in two separate rooms for a while.
Yeah. I was in the podcast area, which is so cool.
Thank you.
It's decorated with a bunch of guitars. You have 4 mics. It's a really cool setup.
Thank you.
And then I came on the live radio broadcast.
You did.
And your audience did not take well to what I was saying.
What were you saying?
Why don't you refresh my memory?
We were talking about music, and my music taste was definitely way different than your demo.
The emo stuff, or
well, I was talking about Kanye West.
Oh,
and it was live, so people were like type like, who the F is, like, why is she saying this? Like, get her off the show. I was like, oh my. It was morning too. Like, how do people have
so it's
energy?
live. So you do.
The radio show, and she was on my first. I had a radio show with Beaver County Radio, WBVP, and I had that from 16 through like the end of 19. And it started out as a real estate show, and then they kept giving me more time. I don't know if it was a good thing or bad thing. I kept taking it. I went from an hour to 90 minutes to 2 hours to 2.5 hours to 3 hours.
Wow.
And after a while, like by the 8th or 9th week, I said, listen, we have to turn this into a variety show or something because I'm out of real estate material. So I think Anna came on, we were doing the variety thing too, and it was just like, and again, the audience of that station is even probably older than my demographic. The body of that demographic is probably 60s and 70s and 80s, honestly.
Yeah.
So even I'm kind of odd to them. Then you bring a youngster in there, and they're like,
Talking about Kanye. I didn't know a band or something. And they were like...
I had Rob Cool on, and he actually went on air and actually said the following. He said, and I quote, "The greatest band in the world is absolutely the Backstreet Boys." He said that on live radio. And all of us were just like, no, you just didn't say
They don't
it.
even play any music. What?
No, but he actually held straight to it.
You know what? And I can respect that.
I guess.
I don't mind Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what? Guilty pleasure.
I wouldn't say they're the greatest, but
They're okay.
Like,
I mean,
Eric's like a music-based person.
No, I'm also considerably older than both of you too. So we're talking different generations here.
You experienced like what? Like the not Warped Tour era, but what's the one before that? Woodstock?
I was before tours. I was before festivals.
Okay.
I saw that coming later. Yeah, there was Warped. There was
classic rock. So you have a better taste.
Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I am a kid of the '70s and the mid to early '80s. By the time the late '80s came around, I was in corporate America. I was starting my journey. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But considerably more sophisticated than the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, I like real music,
Yeah.
like rock
Motley?
guitars and. Pardon me?
Motley's great.
like Motley Crue.
Yeah, I saw Motley and was into Motley when they were Motley in the very beginning. But yeah, I mean, they're still out there doing something.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're doing
Making
something.
movies called The
Walk
Dirt.
the documentary.
Yeah.
Or whatever that
Yeah,
was.
no. They got a huge following. It was never really my bag, but I wasn't against it. It just wasn't. It was they were there, and they were okay for me.
Okay.
But yeah, that genre of music, right? That was '80s, early '80s. They came right out of LA, I think in '81 or something like that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so your era, 80s, when interest rates were 17%.
And I remember my parents complaining about that nonsense coming out of the Carter years. And I was funny. I don't generally ever talk politics, but I have funny stories. My mother was this dyed-in-the-wool Democrat from Coriopolis. My father was this hoity-toity, transplant to the town, and he was Republican, and both sides of the families were just so different. So I would hear both of the arguments. I remember when Carter was in there, and nicest guy, but boy, the economy was hurting.
Yep.
And then I guess inflation was rough then too, and I was just kind of starting to pay attention to all that stuff. But I remember the interest rates being just crazy. And my parents were, we were very humble. I mean, it was tough, and inflation was a thing too in the late '70s.
Oh yeah.
And I hope we're not headed back toward that, but we'll see.
What do you think if that repeats itself?
It's not good. I think it's already repeating itself now. We're seeing an increase as we sit here today. I think interest rates are certainly on the climb. I'm not a pessimist. I don't think it's going to go to 9 and 10.
I don't think so either.
But
No, yeah.
I am concerned about inflation because inflation it hurts. It hurts the people that it absolutely can't stand to be hurt. You know, inflation doesn't hurt those with means. I mean, it's a pinch, but it really hurts those without means, and that's the shame of it. That's why inflation is just so terrible, and I hope they get it under control.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Like I've even noticed, like going to the grocery store, just the price of food being astronomically higher. Because I buy like the same stuff over and over again. I'm
me
a
too.
very basic eater.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
like, all right, let me get my strawberries. And before they were like $3, now they're $7. I was like, what's like?
Yeah.
And that's across the board. So it's like you said, it hurts people who don't have the means. Now that's like a
100%.
lifestyle shift.
It is a lifestyle shift.
And we've been talking about rates for like 4 episodes. But the reason I brought it up was because, one, you lived through the initial, or at least one catastrophic inflation episode.
Yes.
And 2, we're kind of seeing that it's still historically low today.
Very.
Because people like to, I hate to use the word inflate, but inflate issues that are happening that aren't that bad yet. It could get worse.
It's a frame of reference, right?
Yeah.
If you only know what you know, you shouldn't be expected to understand what happened before you. I being in my mid-50s, I have a broader swath to pull from. So I generally think, okay, I've kind of seen this before. Not for a long time, but it happened before my lifetime. And I think that's just a natural thing when you get older. You just have a larger frame of reference, and you tend not to be, I think most folks tend not to be so, I don't know, triggered's a terrible word to use in this society, but but affected by like every little incremental change.
Yes.
It's bigger, it's more global to you when you're younger because, oh my God, look at this, it's happening, right?
Right. Everything's catastrophic on the news,
Yeah,
which is why I
for
don't
sure.
watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that's not serving anybody.
No.
Do we even have news? I mean, it's just
No.
just political parties have the arms, and they just out there talking to people. They're
Exactly
talking
right.
at you.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking at you, which is why podcasting is great, because this is a conversation,
Right.
Yeah.
and this is not.
Nobody's
this
paid
all
us
day,
yet.
you know?
Nobody's paid. We can be as free and as opinionated and true to ourselves as we want, because I'm not bought
Yeah,
by
I
anyone.
I never wanted.
I'll
a
never be
sponsor.
bought.
No, same.
No, the freedom that comes with no sponsors. I have a lot of folks that think I'm absolutely insane because I've turned down, and it's flattering to turn down sponsorships, and that means something. What I don't know yet, but I'm just not interested. I didn't start it. Didn't start the gig for that. But yeah, having that freedom to have no one having handcuffs on you and just being able to do whatever the flip you want to do. Say what you want to say, not for the sake of offending, not for the sake of swearing on air. It's none of that stuff. It's just the fact that no one's got their hook in me, and I don't have to do any reads. Like, this show is sponsored by Bill's Towing Company at 264. I mean, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I have to do it on radio. I don't know. Podcasting was the escape from the commercial side of radio. Now I'm back on radio. It's another story. But the point is, ultimately, I loved radio, and I loved reaching real estate people through radio. But eventually, the nature of radio, being a one-man operation, it got tough. And podcasting was so free. And
It's
if
like
you
an
bring
open
commercials on, Anna, then it isn't free anymore.
Then you have to have them in mind, just out of respect.
You need someone. Yeah, I think that's why, like, your Vice or your edgy companies are more willing to go to the sphere, and podcasters are willing to take them on, like your cannabis, your just edgy products are a better fit because they're okay with all the
Anything you want to be.
pretty much.
Yeah, because they're
pretty
kind
much.
of isolated right now in society.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So yeah, before Cash In was started, I've always thought about podcasting, but never had like the gumption to do it. But you kind of inspired me because you told me that you had your podcasting show and you would get business from it. I think you got the first year you had it was like 4 people, but it obviously compounded and grew.
Out now.
Yeah, it compounded every year. But I mean, I never realized how afraid people are to be on camera and talk.
Yeah.
So.
It's branding, and I flunked out of college. I was a marketing major. That didn't go well, so I can't come to you from a I don't know. My point of reference for what I'm about to say is not coming through a scholastic endeavor. It's coming from just the hard knocks through life. But that whole thing, well, there's 2 ways of, there's marketing to have a direct cause and effect, and then there's branding, right? All that stuff. The more time I spent trying to figure all that out, the more time I wasted. I just realized I'm going to do what I want to do, put my name out there, stand behind my name, and then show people, hey, this is who I am. So By the way, I'm also a realtor. This is what I do, but I'm not going to push that on them. So this indirect way of reaching people through the podcast gives them a taste of who I am, for better or worse. I'm not really looking to work with folks who don't dig me. And there's plenty of people that don't.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. But the podcast is a great way to put it out there so they know exactly who I am. And if they find me acceptable or they dig the same things, there's commonality. Maybe they want to give me a call. It's worked out great, and I guess that's the reason why I really don't think about sponsors and all that crazy nonsense. It's like it's a
You're
passion
getting your return
project.
elsewhere.
Yeah, it's indirect.
Yeah.
But the bigger thing is like just the ability to talk with people, because I love this thing and I hate it. But I've watched my children who are 21 and 19 now. I've watched them grow up and I've watched them socialize with their friends, and I've just seen way too much bizarre communication. Like I wanted all my kids to do things and go play, and sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. But I realized right away that look, Joe Rogan decides to podcast and do 2, 3, 4 hour shows in a society that does everything by soundbite. You would think the attention span of the average human is bad. In reality, I don't think so. I just think that that's what we're conditioned to. I think humans are yearning to sit down and engage, and it is sad that they would rather listen to someone else engage than do it themselves, but at least to start. So I think that's what podcasting is. I think there's a need for real, honest communication. That's where it's at.
It's a great point. You know, you think of these platforms like TikTok now, or even Instagram Reels, right? You have people that'll listen to these little snippets, 30 seconds, a minute, and then they'll just keep flicking.
Yep.
You know, so it's kind of adjusting the way that their mind is working. Like, okay, well, here's a minute. They just keep going, and they'll spend hours. But to your point, they'll. It's not that they're not engaged.
100%.
But they'll just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Get on a dark hole.
Oh my goodness. I found myself doing that. It's literally time travel.
It's addicting.
Yeah.
What
it is.
I'm
it's
a
like the
different
casino
demographic
effect.
than you, and exactly right. And there's I believe that there's science. I can't prove this. I know I read years ago that there was one of the big media houses, or the social media houses, had hired gaming software folks to come in there and try to figure out how to keep people engaged on the app, and that's where the swiping thing came from. It might have been a dating site, it might have been
Tinder
Instagram.
was like that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a psychological, because the brain can only handle so much. And I guess for me it's kind of sad, because I graduated high school in 83. So I was well into corporate America by 89, 90 and starting my life. And then when the internet came along in 96, it was awesome. For a lot of reasons, because if you were curious about something, you could go out and intentionally find it, search for it. Then you could start to do commerce. Fantastic. It was when the internet started to spit information at you all day and then start to curate your experience, where I think we fell off the ability for us to sit down and have conversations and enjoy each other's company. We kind of like jumped into this, not even a virtual word yet. That's
it's coming.
But
Yes.
we jumped into this kind of like self-centric, non-communicative way of surviving, and it's kind of scary to me, because it really rubs up against the human condition, and I just don't understand it.
Well, think about it. They're like with the way that these companies are investing, right? So you have like Microsoft, Nvidia, a lot of these bigger companies, they're investing heavily into this metaverse, right? So now you have people that are spending $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, if not more, on virtual real estate. And
Yeah.
there
Isn't
are
that
these
insane?
avatars
NFTs, right?
that are doing that. It's
called World 2.0.
There's a bunch. There's going to
Yeah.
be multiple metaverses with. I don't know if there's going to be one
There's like
underlying
Web3.
one, but
Yeah, that's out of my lane. I don't
crazy.
know.
I mean, they have these avatars that are going into bars and drinking, and there's people behind them like you and I that are acting on behalf of their avatar. It's crazy.
So in the face of that, and I guess there's a lot to it, but what does that tell you about like humans? What does that
Truthfully,
say?
I mean,
what's
I'm
That's a great
horrified
question.
by it.
What's that say?
I'm invested in a company that's just because of
It's inevitable.
I think it's coming regardless. But truthfully, I think that from like your kids, I have a 14-year-old stepdaughter. Seeing how they interact with one another, it's all behind this, and I've seen it many times. Like there'll be 4 or 5 girls sleeping over, and they're all sitting on the couch doing like this, and I'm like, are you guys talking to one another, or like through your phone, or who are you texting?
Yeah.
Why are you on Instagram? So as you gravitate towards that virtual world, I think that it is going to affect the way that people communicate in general.
Yeah, it's like
and now people are working
almost
from home.
Yeah,
100%.
we're like regressing. Like someone said, emojis are like
That's the word.
the other
That's
hieroglyphics.
the perfect
The emojis
word.
are the new
Regression.
hieroglyphics. And then Elon said eventually humans will be so immersed in technology, you will not be able to differentiate the two.
And this is why I'm glad I'm the age that I am, and I've got another, God willing, another 30
Part of me
years
envies
on.
that.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying because I can see where it's going.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I reflect on this a lot too. Life can be very hard, and I think life can be hard for a lot of people. And I'm wondering if maybe this new virtual option is a way to level the playing field and maybe take some of the cruelness away from life for certain people. And I'm not saying it'll happen that way. I'm just saying maybe people are attracted to it because they can create a brand new life in some weird way.
It's a new heart's created.
I don't know. It's fascinating.
Scary. Suicide rates are up, right? Directly
To
correlated
cyberbullying and
to
all that stuff.
cyberbullying. The image that no one can obtain because everything is face tuned and body image
Looks like it's better than it is.
Everything's fake. So it's like,
but we need to be more sophisticated in the way we think, because if we are succumbing to just bad and stupid and illogical things. We know the answers, yet we don't do it. It's like a salesperson. I'm sure you've heard this in your lifetime. Salespeople will find something that works and works well. I mean, really, and they'll tell everybody about it. They'll tell their boss. They'll tell everybody. This is amazing, and then they'll stop doing it. Mm-hmm. It's a phenomenon. Once in a while, you'll see someone that'll run with it. But most people will find something that really works well, and they'll do it for a short period of time, and they'll quit. And I'm guilty. All the salespeople I know are guilty.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means, but I just think that sometimes the answer is in front of us. But the fact that we don't sit and talk to each other, and that's all the Eric Mckenna Project is getting people to sit in the room. Either it's interview style, one-on-one, or a panel show with two other people, and just putting the phones away and simply talking. And my job is just to slow it down, because this is fast. This whole thing is coming at and I just want to slow it down for a period of time. Someone's listening and someone's watching, which is flattering. I don't know why sometimes, but they do. But in the end, it's just an opportunity to get people to really say, hey, the real human experiences in conversations and in communication, that's the real communication. Why are you not partaking in that? I mean, it's what a lost opportunity.
and I want to bring that up too, because communication can make or break a deal.
Always.
And it's kind of hard, people they think it's convenient with a phone. But if we're dealing with a 14-page contract and you can't hear how I enunciate something or how I put emphasis on a word, you can't really understand what I'm trying to convey to you in terms of like what you could be at risk for when you're making a purchase.
You get it, see? And I think that a lot of other agents do get that too, but I think from my observations, a lot of agents are afraid to express the need for that phone call, the need for that face-to-face, because they anticipate pushback from the client. Now, again, my viewpoint's a little different. My clients tend to be a little older, closer to my demographic, so we aren't quite as inundated in this world as maybe what you're going through. But even my younger clients that I work with, I can see sometimes, I've done a deal, that I never spoke with the young lady ever until we sat at the closing table. And I'm telling you this because she couldn't attend the inspection, so I went for her. But there was just never an opportunity. We were not in the same room together, and we never had a verbal conversation until we were sitting together at the closing table.
It was all email or text?
It was text message, primarily. Email, certainly for DocuSign.
Where'd she find you from?
Referral. And she was going through a difficult personal circumstance that required her really not to have conversations in mixed company. That's how it started for her. And I said, certainly, I will accommodate myself to whatever works for you. And then it just continued, and everything was smooth in the deal. But at the end, I didn't even know what she looked like outside of maybe seeing her on social media. So that was a real eye opener for me. Like, we are in a different.
How old was she?
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
She was like 34, maybe 35, and it all worked out wonderfully. But you're right, Anna. There's so many things about. And this is the thing the public really needs to hear. It's I think good realtors will accommodate every client.
Yeah.
The method of I'm sure in your interview process you ask the client, What methods of communication would you prefer? We'll do that. But sometimes nothing is better than looking that client in the eye, and especially if you have to give them difficult news.
It's a level of trust. Like if you don't
100%.
have that, then how can you usher them through a deal if they have uncertainty about a certain situation? Like, are you on whose side are you on? They don't know if they can't see me and see how I'm saying it.
But see, what you just described there is old school communication, and you get it because of where we are today. We're still not in here yet.
Yeah.
We're headed that direction. But my question to you is, someday maybe 10 years from now, 5, 20 years from now, what you just described is not going to be valued by society. Like, I see it ebbing away now. We don't value like. There was a thing in society, and especially with women, when I grew up, called getting coffee. Women would go have coffee in the afternoon. They had play dates and all that stuff. Even that stuff, from what I can see and what I investigate, that's all ebbing away. There's, they'll sit at home and have coffee together virtually while they're chatting on the phone, but it's like things, the niceties of the human connection are gone. And that's not just in the social world. That is in business.
Yeah.
And it's scary. Yeah. We're buying cars on eBay and on Carvana. We're buying, and obviously there's forces at play that would love to eliminate realtors. It ain't gonna happen. But it's not because of the complexity, and because there still is that compulsion. They want to reach out and feel the relationship, I believe.
Yeah.
Trust.
Yeah.
But I think over time, given new generations coming, that little bit of trust requirement might go away. It might happen, or trust will look different in a virtual world.
That's interesting. That's a really good. Trust will look different, and that's the new trust.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar
with it. Old guy
with
talking right now. I don't like it. I just don't like it. But
even trust on the other end. Like, if I can't hear the client's voice, then how do I know that you are who you say you are? Like, how do I know you're not getting me in a potential legality situation? Because I have risks too. I have a license at risk.
100%.
I've had situations where people who they weren't exactly who they said they were, or they didn't exactly own a house that they thought they did.
Well, this can be a dangerous job.
Yeah.
I would say certainly for women. 100%. And I never really took it seriously until I was in a position where I was in my first year, showing a pre-foreclosed property in a rural location, and a big long Benz showed up in this dirt road, and I'm out there with a lockbox key, not a flashlight, no weapon, and this car rolls up with four or five different burly looking guys, and everything went okay because I left. But it was very unsettling. We really don't know. We don't.
Obviously,
know
we
who
have
we're
an
meeting.
intuition, so you felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, I did have an intuition. Yeah, I did feel extremely uncomfortable, but I'd never taken it serious up until that point.
Yeah.
And we need to. We need to, because the more this plays into it, the more think about all of the arrangements that are made now in our practice with this phone for scheduling. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You talking about email invites and stuff like that, or?
Well, just like the showing time
showings.
app that was used, the showings. We generally, I think there's a push. Some realtors don't want to talk to other realtors.
Which is crazy and so frustrating.
Exactly right, and I think that really, and that's where from a realtor industry, we need to take a look at that. I think there should be some circumstances where we should be forced to have broader communications in the process. I think that there's so much automation now that I'm not sure that serves the public well.
That, and they don't know how to communicate to each other. They're very combative. I was just dealing with this morning with someone on my team who she's newer, but she's done a few deals. And the typical agent that just tries to pull rank and say, I've been doing this X amount of years, very emotional.
I love that.
I don't even understand why people say that. It's very weird. But
it is weird.
But yeah, very emotional, and was kind of condescending. And it wasn't really getting to the point, okay, we're trying to make a deal here. We're supposed to close next week. We have an issue with the driveway. Is your seller going to fix it or not? It doesn't have to be you giving us your resume.
Right.
You already have the license. We don't care how long you've been doing this. Just help us get to the finish line.
That comes out of insecurity and fear, I think. When I first got into the business, I came in as my mid-40s career change. I came from guitars to do this. It was an eye-opener.
What year was
I didn't
that?
know
When was
that.
Yeah,
2013.
When you started?
Yeah.
So
I kind of shadowed Bob Fox Bob
I've
Fosse
heard
was
of.
very helpful
He's like
to
a
me
legend.
at
I heard of
Howard
him.
Hanna. The guitar thing was so good, but I knew that it had run its course. It was 15 years, and I knew I was too young to retire, and I had to find the next thing. And real estate just worked. It was the whole. It just for me personally, how I'm made up as a person, it just worked. So I shadowed a good agent for a while and kind of really studied the successful agents, and I said I can do this. But man, early on, it was I could see like the old guard, the older guard agents that were really struggling with technology, and the younger agents coming up and pushing the envelope and requiring them to text. I mean, texting. When I started in 2013, which isn't that long ago,
Right.
there were agents that would not text.
That's when I started, and I agree with you.
They would not text, and so they had to be.
They had fax machines. Like
pushing
they still use faxes.
There was fax machines, and that was kind of going away. But even like getting someone to understand the concept of scanning in a PDF, and we have to remember that there's agents in the 80s, and there's agents that are 19 out there, all kind of doing the same business. There's different multiple age demographics there. So there's all kinds of different ways to skin a cat, but it was really interesting to see the pushback. And once in a while you would get some really good agents, but they would resort to that, I've been doing this for 27 years. And you would see that come out of their mouths, and you'd be kind of disappointed. Like,
I don't know that's just in real. I've heard you mention it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's just.
You get that
in
too
your
in
industry.
your industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's reps that are out there that'll do that.
Yeah.
Like, they'll try to pull that card.
that's insecurity at its finest, though.
Literally, that is all that it is.
I'm like, who are you trying to convince, me or
know?
you? I don't care you did.
Right. It's like, I don't care. That's meaningless
Yeah.
in this conversation.
Totally.
Yeah, and the idea of in the end, we're supposed to be representing our client above everything else. And
Right.
if I can't come with humility and come with kindness to all my agents, who, as far as I'm concerned, and I've said this, and Anna's heard me say this a dozen times, if not 50 times, I don't view other agents and other brokers as competition.
Nope.
I am in this business to make a living for myself and achieve my own personal goals. I don't play well with others when it comes to brokers and competitions. It's just not my bag. It's okay for others, it's just not my bag. I don't view agents as competition. We are in this thing. We are like in this big pot of real estate, and we're all participating equally. And I think every time we're kind and we go the extra mile for some other agent in a deal, it generally comes back at some point in time, and that's the goodwill that keeps the pot moving. And it sounds I know it sounds a little wishy-washy to say that, but that's how I actually feel that my kindness will be returned at some, maybe not in that deal, maybe that agent won't get my kindness, but it'll come back to me at some point. We have to do that, and to do that, you have to deal with agents in their 80s and agents in their late teens. And to me, as long as we're all trying to serve our client, in the end, the best thing I can do for my client, I believe this, is to work and respect and deal with other agents as other agents with humility and kindness. That's the best thing I can do for them, because that's going to put my best foot forward and hopefully corral a smooth transaction for them, because all we're doing is trying to get their property sold or get their property purchased and have them satisfied and on with their life.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to do.
Yep.
Right?
That translates to the other side, who's not your client, who you don't have a direct point of contact with. If the other agent feels good about you, that's going to translate in the negotiations when they deliver the message. It's very important.
And it's so elemental. Like, why? I don't even
So,
know why this even has to
basic.
be taught and trained. It's really, there's nothing.
People.
I think the last thing that serves our industry is an adversarial nature in anything. I know. I mean, I've worked for two brokerages in my short career that are defunct. One's on the verge of being defunct, and the other one is defunct. So I've got plenty of points of reference for seeing bad business.
Yeah.
Low integrity. I've seen the bad
The
side of real
showiness.
estate. But what's great about it is, if I had not seen all this good, I would have nothing to really go, whoa,
Yeah.
So I think the bad part of everything gets our attention first in society, but there's so much good going on too. And I think that's what really at times gets missed in our industry. There's so much positive stuff going on all the time. We just don't notice it because we're just looking at this craziness that goes on, and someone's egreging somebody else, and someone is, stealing money, and someone's doing this, and someone's not paying their agents.
It's magnetic.
Yes. but to be able to rise above that and realize, but in spite of that one circumstance, there's hundreds and hundreds of other brokers and agents out there doing really great business. And
it's funny because we were just having a conversation about something similar last week. The perception of agents is different. By and large, I don't know. You guys might differ with the number. I mean, I would say probably over 95% in my experience are generally really good. But even if you have 5% that are bad, it gives a stigma and it makes people sit there and think right away the worst. Like the motives behind the realtor that you're using are bad.
Like quick cash.
Like it's quick. Like it's quick money. You're not out for my own best interest. This
what a shame.
That's
what a shame.
And they're definitely there. I've had my experience with it, but
I'm a realtor because I had. It's funny.
Is that right?
I'm a realtor. My wife and I bought a house 2012. Natalie and I, blended family. We needed a big house. We found an old Victorian style house we loved in our hometown where we grew up. Okay, we'll get it. I didn't understand what seller assist was. I didn't understand what an FHA mortgage was. I didn't know anything. The houses transactions I was involved with prior were family parcels that were willed to me or I bought from my family members. I didn't understand the process.
Yeah.
And, it was money was tight. I'd gone through a second divorce and the business was faltering and we had this scrimp and scrounge to get this property, but I went into a dual agency circumstance, which is something I don't partake in, but I don't partake in dual agency as well too, because I had a bad taste in my mouth there. The agent did not do their due diligence and let us know. We didn't have a mortgage company, so they recommended a mortgage company. We were never explained the 6% availability for FHA, seller assist. So I ended up bringing a lot more to closing than I needed to. Our inspection was poor because we just went along with what the agent recommended, who was representing the seller. The long and the short of it was I am a realtor today because of the bad service I got the year prior in buying my own house. And I thought, that didn't look like a hard job. All he had to do is just do it right and do it honestly. And I'm sure there's more to it, but that got me my interest. And then once I got in here, I realized, wow, everybody's generally doing a pretty good job as far as I can see. But, man, the bad ones do get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
It's usually,
they do. It's a shame.
It is.
It's a shame. But that's how the long story of how I ended up becoming a realtor.
So do you own any? Do you an investor or do you do anything like that?
No, I
work with any.
No, I got a pretty weird perspective on life. My family had some rentals, and the whole process left a kind of a taste in my mouth. I have money in other places, but not currently in rentals.
Okay.
I do work I work with 3 investors that have done pretty well. So I understand that just no interest at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Life just never took me that. All the money I made usually was poured back into the guitar business, and knock on wood, it worked out pretty well. But real estate is an investment tool done correctly like no other. There's no question. And in hindsight, to do it all again, and I have my son coming up now. He's got a little level of interest in it, so we'll be dabbling. But this is a tough time to be a real estate investor.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of inventory right now.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. But I mean, I don't have a lot of point of reference of the city market. I've done some listings in the city and so forth, but in terms of investment properties, what can you two shed light for me? Like, what is going on now? Lawrenceville was like the thing in Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is it still the thing, or are the parcels just running out?
In terms of flips, people are still successfully flipping higher end properties there. Yes.
Okay.
In terms of rentals, what I've seen is that it's grossly overpriced because of the area. It doesn't really work as a numbers game.
Okay.
That's my take on it. What do you see?
For the rents, so within the city limits, in my opinion, because I'm primarily a Beaver County investor, or I'll do out of state short term rentals.
Okay.
Because of the taxes and because of the pricing in the city, it just never the numbers just never make sense. Doesn't mean that I would be opposed to it, but I'm not going to spend $500,000-$600,000 on a duplex, just because the rents are, because people say that, oh, well, you know what, the rents are $2,500, they're $2,000. I'm like, yeah, but
my taxes are $5,000.
Taxes and the mortgage between what I'm paying for it, it just doesn't justify it.
100%. How has the city rebounded from COVID? I mean, like, my biggest fear with downtown through 2021 was that there was just so many empty office buildings, and I didn't know.
Commercial got hit the hardest.
Yeah, is it still bad? Is it are they pulling themselves out? Do you think?
I think it's still in terms of leasing is difficult.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody in real estate in the city, and he had said the same thing, that he won't touch anything that's, you know, directly downtown, just because a lot of business has left or will left because there's a new norm as it relates to it. And we're seeing that in bigger cities like New York City, where, you know what, I'm not spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on rent, you know, whereas I could just transfer, you know, half or more of my employees to working virtual for satellite from home. I don't have this giant overhead. I'll relocate my office down to Florida where state tax is less. And, you know, and it's just a trickle effect. Mm-hmm. So
why did it take a pandemic for us to put in play what we already kind of knew, though?
Yeah.
All those are facts that were already out there.
Yeah.
Was it, you know, because
I think
the corporations used it as an excuse to be able to make the move?
I think that people, I don't know that companies were. So think about this. So Zoom, for example, you know, Zoom became mainstream, right? So where it's like, yeah, you want to hop on a Zoom.
Yep.
You know, you know, like I was familiar with someone with like WebEx, which was like
Skype.
Cisco.
I used to use Skype.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, and it's like now it's, you know, everything's
Go
like
to
you do virtual
meetings.com.
showings for like my rentals. Like, well, can you just do a virtual showing? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, but for me, it's like you're not going to really see what the property
Those cause
looks
me
like.
anxiety. I send
Because then I'm like
videos.
trying to back up into a corner, trying to show a room,
Yeah.
like, you know, like,
Yeah,
well, this
we're
looks too
out,
small.
I mean, we're out of the pandemic now.
It is.
It's
it
over.
appears to be. I mean, I'm not a
We'll see if we give a
doctor,
rebounder on
I'm
it.
not a scientist.
It's
Depends how the politics falls.
I'm a
Depends on whether it
citizen.
comes back or not. It may be.
See
I
if it-
don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we're past it. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't come back strong, are we going to be warehousing bodies anymore? Because obviously that's why a lot of these big office buildings, these office complexes, these call centers, you know,
It goes back
see it
to our
happen.
first topic. It was being able to speak to each other in person. It's not the same as a Zoom.
it's not the same as.
But I think
Money talks, though.
it does. But the commercial price per square foot also has to stabilize because it's still pre-pandemic prices and
it's
no
kinda
one's going in there.
backwards, right? Yeah, it's kind of backwards. You
Yeah.
would think that the bottom
Residential boomed, commercial went down.
isn't that fascinating?
It is.
Yeah,
Obviously,
it's
something
like-
happened.
It's hard to predict. It's almost impossible to predict.
Yeah, that was wild. One day I just wasn't allowed to work anymore because Governor Wolf said so. He said I wasn't essential and I couldn't work for 2 months. I went to Florida. That's where I went.
Yeah, but I can't try to remember. Yeah, that was.
It was almost like there was no wind. It was almost like the earth was quiet.
I think it depends on your industry that you're in, though, too.
Yeah, that's true. It heavily does.
And
Yeah.
where you were geographically too, because I
Yeah.
think some states just like in West Virginia, they were like pandemic. What's a pandemic? Pan like I fry my eggs in a
I
pan.
don't. They could have meant that.
I
but-
mean, no, seriously, I'm oversimplifying, but ultimately everything was still open.
It's true. Yeah, it was like you wouldn't. I went down to Florida in May of 2020.
Uh-huh.
That was the first time I went to St. Pete, and not that you didn't have like some people wearing masks and whatever, but like here, you take a walk in the park, people are masked up, visored up, gloves, walking.
Going to
stroll,
Giant
I'm
Eagle
like,
was a health risk.
holy shit!
It was
Huh?
like
Yeah.
I wore gloves.
What'd you say it was?
Going to Giant Eagle was like a health risk.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
people don't want
like-
to touch a box of cereal.
No,
You know?
toilet paper. It was
So
all
think-
that wild
you
thing.
know? So
Yeah.
think about that. I mean, and people are still like this. I mean, they're still like this. I was in an appointment yesterday. I'm in pharmaceutical. I'm in sales.
Right.
And I had a customer literally sit there and stop me dead in my tracks and goes, you know, I'm really sorry, but your mask, it keeps going below your nose. Are you vaccinated? And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like my mask, I'm talking, it's going down. So my point behind that is that people, although it's over, there's still a big segment of the population that feels that way. So
Yeah, for
you
sure.
think about them,
For sure.
these big businesses that are downtown. I'm sure that people are milking it, whether they're still over it or not.
It's an excuse
They're going to say,
now.
well, I'm going to work from home. You know, I'm still COVID. I'm still worried about this.
Yeah.
I'd rather work remote. And
You know how awesome
people
COVID was for everything? As an excuse for things being late, for whether I was speeding.
No closing.
Couldn't go to my
ever
court.
on time.
Yeah.
You
No
could
closing
always
was ever
say.
on time.
Couldn't go to my court hearing for my speeding ticket, so eventually they just didn't care
COVID.
You
anymore.
could blame anything on
No
COVID.
problem.
Yeah, I was like, oh, COVID. Oh, why aren't you guys closing? COVID. You know, COVID.
COVID.
You
Yeah.
can't show up here. COVID. It was a perfect excuse. So it was a double-edged
I
sword.
tried to get out of inspection.
Yeah.
My inspection and emissions were out.
Yeah.
And I got pulled over, and he's like, hey, you know what? Like last August, it's February, and I'm like, COVID. So I tried to do that in front of the judge. He was like, no. I got slapped with both.
I remember, honestly, about 2 or 3 weeks before we actually got shut down as a society, not real estate. I was coming a couple of weeks later. But just reading things about overseas, what was happening. And I actually was driving home going, yeah, good job. I said to myself, yeah, could you imagine if, like, America decided to shut itself down? We would never. I mean, like, I could see maybe some big events, big gathering events might get canceled. But, I mean, like, could you imagine if, like, we just got shut down? Society? Yeah, right.
Crazy.
I just was like, I was out having my last beer. Believe it or not, the last beer I have had since, and I was out with my good friend Danger Mulder, the DJ.
I know him, yeah.
And I was at Permanis, and they were saying that they're closing. It was a Thursday. Was it Wednesday or Thursday night? And they're closing, and they didn't know when they were going to open. And I'm looking at them going, "This is unbelievable. They're going to shut society down.
Yeah. Literally.
What are we going to do?"
Like, it's funny you say, because it like reminds me of. It's a terrible example, but it's
like
on 9/11, you remember where you were, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember where I was because I was at a bar in Beaver County, and it was like March 17th or something like that.
Right? It was
St. Patty's Day.
Yep.
It was the last hurrah, and it's like, well, we're closing for this, and we're like, are you kidding me? Like I saw the NBA was closed. I'm like, it's crazy the trickle effect.
Yeah.
And then how long after that did the market, kind of just?
Yeah. When did rates?
I don't know when they dropped rates. I don't remember what month they did that.
Well, we couldn't sell homes. I couldn't show homes to sell them.
You couldn't show them. It was like it seemed like everything was a disaster.
I sold 3 houses sight unseen to a guy in California.
I was probably one of your first COVID ones.
That's right. Yeah. That was a crazy deal.
Right before, it got delayed like 3 months because of COVID.
Yeah.
So help me understand this logic. So this I will never understand. We go into the COVID protocols and the industry kind of shuts down. Then we slowly open again, and then, because everybody's bored and staying at home and they have absolutely no respect for what we do for a living, and everybody can do it, all these people get their real estate license.
Oh my
I know.
God.
So now you have, and that's okay. I mean, everybody's got a right to do it.
Yeah.
But there's like thousands of new real estate agents, and the interest rate is low. So now you have a lot of questionable pre-approvals being floated out there with a lot of inexperienced agents, buyers that aren't qualified for the property. So the market's really gummed up, right? Then, miraculously, interest rates drop, and there's no properties to list because the homeowners are afraid. They're afraid to
can't show the house.
It's COVID.
Because of COVID.
It's COVID.
Yeah.
But now you have all these agents out there mucking up the system, these new agents. You have all these younger buyers that now are, oh my gosh, it's 2%. I actually can buy a house. Although the paper on the pre-approval isn't worth the ink that it was printed with. How does all that happen in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic?
I have no idea. It's
What
crazy.
is the odds of that?
Insane.
What are the odds of that? And you wonder why people are conspiracy theorists. I try not to partake in that, but ultimately you wonder why they're sitting at home with nothing to do, and the whole world's collapsing, and they can look at cause and effect. They put 2 and 2 together. Oh, something just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. I thought
That's podcasting.
I thought the real estate market was going to crash then. That's what I thought. Shows you how much I know.
Well, I thought it too, but I'm hoping that some of those part-time newer agents have realized it's not for them, and they're kind of slowly leaving the.
I think that's what's happening. That's the evolution of 2022 to 2023. I think they get one taste of stress where they can't sleep one night because they don't even know that they might get sued, or they think they're going to get sued, or someone's mad at me. You got to have thick skin in this business. I still get paranoid for stuff. I mean, people want to talk me off a ledge sometimes, and I've been doing this 10 years.
Yeah.
So
this is not for the faint of heart.
No.
You know, like one guy goes, "You guys get paid so much money. What the hell do you do?" I said, "How long do you got, buddy? Because when I'm done, you're gonna be like crying."
Yeah, literally. So true, but yeah, this was great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. We'll have to come on yours.
Yeah,
I'm just inviting myself.
No, I have an idea. We'll talk about.
Oh, wonderful.
For sure.
All right, guys. Well, hit us up on cash_in. Watch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Thanks for watching episode 16.